Iceland, a hostile yet beautiful country, filled with fauna, flora, and fire. From fiery volcanoes to Viking tales, long glaciers to geothermal geysers, every footprint filled with hundreds of words telling stories from thousands of years ago. I'm here to find my story and look at the volcano inside of me. So yeah, that didn't happen. My name is Ethan Williams, and that's the only thing that I know for sure. This year has taught me that nothing is as simple as it seems. Adventures, as well as this story, aren't as fun as you would think. In the words of Bilbo Baggins, this is a nasty, disturbing, uncomfortable thing which will make me late for dinner. Throughout this story, a sense of identity will be explored. Identities such as a student, a traveller, and even a volcanologist. But in order to explore these identities, I need to go back 14 years to be precise. France, the place at which my passion began, on the 6th of August to be precise, at Puy de l'Empégie, a dormant volcano. At the age of 6, the human brain begins to understand the world around us and we begin to question things. Similar to tectonic plates colliding, my brain was beginning to be moulded and shaped into a formation that would lead me on the path of life. So today is Saturday, I think. We drove for ages, so I got to watch more films. Dad was very jealous because he was still driving. I watched Robots. I really like this film because the good robot beats the bad fat robot at the end. I also watched Thunderbirds, but I got scared at the end because I thought the bad guy was going to win and kill everybody. I then fell asleep for a bit. I was so tired, so I could not imagine how tired Dad must have been. I then watched The Incredibles, which is one of my favourite films because I want to grow up to be like Mr. Incredible one day. We got to the hotel and Mum said we were near a volcano. When she said this, I was scared. I thought, what if it begins to erupt? Mum asked me what I thought the volcano was going to be like. I said, big browny yellow triangles with red lava shooting out the top. I said this because I have a toy volcano at home, which I use when I play with the dinosaurs, and it makes a loud rumbling noise. We got to the volcano, we got on a train. A train? I was a bit confused. I did not know where we were going. I thought we were going to go up a volcano, however instead we got on a train. At home, we got on the train to go into the city. Were we going into Manchester from here? The train set off. It was going up the volcano. Were we going to fall in? Were we going to burn? The train stopped. I looked down into this massive hole in the ground and asked Mum, "What is it?" She said that it was the volcano. I looked at her and laughed. "This can't be the volcano. It's a hole in the ground," I said. Apparently, this is the hole that the lava used to come out of. But this volcano is now dead. We saw loads of dry magma, which is another word for lava, which I learned today. Apparently, it's a good thing that the volcano is dead, because we could have died from the magma, ash and gas. We collected large pieces of lava when we got off the train. There were 3 different types of lava. One was red, one was black, and the other was a silvery grey. The lava was hard, like a rock. I thought that it was going to be hot and squidgy. Apparently, the lava in my hand was between 8,500 and 13,930 years old. That's older than Grandad. The lady talking to us on the train started asking us questions and said that if we got them all right, we'd be given a prize. I got them all right. We won a small bag of different types of rocks and minerals that have come out of the volcano. They were yellow, brown, blue, grey, orange and black. I'm going to put them in my scrapbook once I've shown them to Gran and Grandad when we get home next week. I also know that some of the small minerals in this bag are up to 30,000 years old. I found today loads of fun. I have so much stuff to put in my scrapbook: postcards, tickets, leaflets, and even lava. Today was a great day, and I cannot wait to see more volcanoes soon. Whilst on this holiday, the 2006 World Cup in Germany was taking place. A competition which would see France reach the final, only to be beaten on penalties to a strong and aggressive Italian side. Football, along with volcanoes, have played a massive part in my life. Football is one of my biggest passions. The sense of community and belonging with people that you've never met brings me a level of happiness which is unrivaled. A month after visiting the Puy de l'Empégie volcano, I attended my first ever live football match where Manchester City beat West Ham 2-0 on September the 23rd, 2006. Football is not only important to myself, but has been important to many members of my family. For the past 3 generations, the Williams family have sat, stood and sung loud and proud about their club. My dad has been a season ticket holder since the 1980s, and I have too since 2012. This was not the only tradition that was passed on by my grandpa. My grandpa never enjoyed beach holidays. He was never a fan of it being too hot, similar to that of my dad. He would also prefer to go to local places of interest, such as castles, waterfalls and historic landmarks. My father has continued this throughout every holiday we've ever been on, from upside down houses to leaning towers, Olympic stadiums to historic lakes, and many, many more. Although my grandpa wasn't in my life for very long, as he sadly passed away on December the 25th, 2003, his legacy and his influence has been firmly stamped into my life. His love for football and his passion for places of interest. My grandpa followed in his father's footsteps by becoming a scout leader, something which has been passed down to my dad and later on to myself. An organisation which has been massively important to me, and I don't believe that I would be here or doing this degree without the Scout Association. Although I say that football is important to me, in my life nothing really comes close to my family. They have always helped me out whenever I've needed it and have been there 24/7. So if I could sum them up in a Bilbo Baggins quote, it would be, "It's a dangerous business, Frodo, going out your front door," which is very fitting with this current situation, with us being in the middle of a pandemic and being in lockdown. As I said, I never really got to know my grandpa. However, I've made up for that by having a really strong relationship with my granddad. Me and my granddad share interests such as football, wildlife, beer and the natural world.
From a young age, my granddad used to take me down to the local nature reserve on a Saturday morning for a couple of hours to do some bird watching. I remember going down there one weekend and there being a bird ringing taking place to keep track of the population in the area. They had many of the local bird life, with the most memorable one being a robin, which I held. This memory sticks in my head as it ignited a further passion in the outdoors, looking after an animal which was my favourite and learning little facts about it as I held it in my hands. Although my granddad has always been and is definitely more interested in history rather than geography, I know that he has had a large impact on my life. My granddad and I have been to many museums. One of the most memorable museum visits was on Thursday the 16th of April 2009. I had an inset day from primary school and I was lucky enough to go see Manchester City versus Hamburg in the Europa League. We won 2-1, however we went out 4-3 on aggregate. I went to Manchester Museum, then after that I went to the Manchester Art Gallery before seeing the team arrive at the Midland Hotel, the hotel where Rolls met Royce, a fact which I have passed on to so many of my friends every time we walk past it on a day out in town. My granddad has always had a passion for ancient history, especially the ancient Egyptians. He also told me many stories about the 79 AD eruption of Mount Vesuvius and the effects on Pompeii. I think his fascination of this event and the stories he's told me about it has been a massive impact on my future passions. The story of Pompeii and Vesuvius is one of the best known volcanic stories in Europe and has been used on many TV shows. Growing up, one of my favourite TV shows was Doctor Who. In 2008, an episode was called The Fires of Pompeii. It's permanently stuck in my memory. Seeing the recreation of the eruption of Pompeii at the end of the episode intensified my interest in the sheer power and the devastation which can be caused from an eruption. As I mentioned before, a lot of my family's traditions came from my grandpa and my dad. My dad is one of my best friends. We both love football, beer, and similar movies and TV shows. These similarities have given us a very close bond, and his traditions passed on by his dad have also been passed on to me and for my future family. Some of my favourite memories of me and my dad have been our European road trips through Holland, Belgium, Italy, but most importantly our favourite, Germany. When my dad was growing up, he went to Bavaria at the age of 13 with his family. Similar to him, my grandpa enjoyed the culture of the area, mostly the food and the drink. We've been back to some of the towns that my dad went to on those holidays in Bavaria. The most memorable one of these was Fussen in 2009. We went to see a beautiful town which my dad had somehow managed to link with a beer festival, but it was definitely for the culture. My dad prides himself on his holidays. He puts in so much time and effort into planning them, and we always have something to do for each of us. If that's a shopping centre or an area of historic interest for my sister, or something to do with racing or football for my brother and myself, or even a well-known landmark for us all to remember for years to come. In more recent years, I've been allowed to drink beer, and on our road trips we've tried many different beers from many different countries. One of my dad's favourite moments is when we left the Heineken Experience Museum in Amsterdam on one of our road trips. As we were about to cross the road, I was hit by a bicycle and instantly had a bruise on my face. We went back to the hotel room to reduce the swelling with some ice and a few beers. I'm sure that is medically correct. We then watched the sunset over the city before going and watching Man City versus Bayern Munich in a pre-season match in a bar and having a nice meal. Dad and I have also been to the German beer festival Annafest twice. This beer festival is in a woodland and there is loads of different beer sellers from different breweries. There were people from all over the world, local cuisine and also some incredible live music. So although the beer was very tasty, again, we were definitely there for the culture. When you're growing up, people will always say the passing comments such as "mother knows best" or "trust your mum" or "mums are always right", and at the time you might not believe them, but as you get older you realise that they actually are. I'm not ashamed to say that my mum, like my dad, is one of my best friends. My mum has always been my rock and a shoulder to cry on every day of my life, and I don't think I'll be ever able to thank her enough for that. From proofreading my university work to ironing my shirts, making my school packed lunches, or supporting my musical interests, she's done everything for me, and she really is my rock. My mum continues to amaze me every day, as she manages to make me feel even prouder to say that she is my mum. So what temperature do I put my jumpers on? When I started primary school, I became jealous of a member of my class who went on holiday during term time. They were asked to complete a scrapbook as they were not in school when they should have been. When they returned, they showed the scrapbook to the head teacher and got a head teacher's award. I became jealous as I could not get a head teacher's award as I couldn't go on holiday during term time. I therefore asked my mum if we could make them on our holidays from 2005 onwards, and we did. Collecting tickets, postcards, leaflets, maps, flyers and even ice cream spoons, I completed a scrapbook every year up to the 2012 London Olympics. As I got older, I needed a bit of persuasion to complete them, as sometimes I would get bored writing what I'd done every day. Mum, alongside Dad, continued to persuade me to complete them, and I look back now and I am extremely grateful to them for convincing me to complete them. Completing a scrapbook meant that I did not have a break from writing over the summer holidays. I remember when I came back to school after the summer holidays, lots of my friends' handwriting was not as neat as it was when we'd left for the holidays because they hadn't picked up a pen for the past 6 weeks. Completing a scrapbook meant that my brain continued to function both academically and creatively during a period when I was not in a school environment. Having the scrapbooks also means that I can create things like this story. My memories from holidays when I was younger are much clearer because I have things written down. What we did, what we ate, what we saw, all of these are written down. When I reflect on writing them now, I notice that they've had a large impact on my life in the future. I've made portfolio scrapbooks during my first 2 years at university, and while completing my photography A-level at college, I did them also. Having created scrapbooks since a young age, I feel as though this allowed me to produce quality portfolios in scrapbook form. This has been backed up by my grades in those assessments. Writing these scrapbooks have been so beneficial to me. I'd like to think that I'll be doing them again in the future, making them with my family. But what is the difference between these two? This is Dan Brown's Inferno, which has now been turned into a film with Tom Hanks. I think we can all agree that this is a story. Whereas this is my 2006 scrapbook, a book filled with memories and events that happened. Is this not also a story? We're referred to as the storytelling animal by Gottschall, meaning that we as humans constantly tell stories to ourselves and those around us, from your dreams to telling someone about your day. This book is a story of my summer of 2006, and although that story has no significance to anyone else, it has clearly had a significant impact on me, and although the story might not matter to anyone else, it's still part of my larger story. Stories and volcanoes have been intertwined for thousands of years, from Greek and Roman gods using them as furnaces to them even using them as the entrance of hell itself. Historians have also linked many of the stories of the Bible to volcanic events. God is mostly portrayed through volcanic events when he is angry, and this has shifted the idea of volcanoes being life takers rather than being life givers. Volcanoes were the creators of the atmosphere. There is also evidence that they were the creators of the first living organism, yet this is overlooked due to their sheer power and destructive ability of their cataclysmic events. This is my story of the good volcano.
The good volcano. My name is Hootie, but you probably know me as Heckler. I never got a choice of what I am or where I live. I was stuck there alone. 50 kilometres of land between me and the ocean. I'm going to tell you a story. My story. I was isolated all my life. Every morning I would wake up with nobody to talk to. Over time I became sad. I would scream and cry. My lava-fueled tears rolled down my rocky face. My screaming filled the air like a black rain cloud. The sound echoed far and wide, bouncing off any rocks that got in its path. The ground cracked like a mosaic, and from it came boiling hot water. A few days passed by, and I found myself calmer. A few days later, a young man, about 19 years old, began to walk towards me. In his hand he had a shovel. He began to dig. He dropped some seeds in the hole that he had dug and walked off. I did not see him again for weeks. Over time, a small green stalk began to sprout through the ground. Every day that passed, the plant grew a little more. The man returned. He planted more plants on the ground around my feet. And he looked up at me and blessed the gods for my existence. Months passed, and the bottom of my slope was now covered in different plants. Lines of crops stretched for as far as the eye could see. More people began to explore around me. More crops seemed to appear every day. I remember it was a Thursday when suddenly I felt a sharp pain in my leg. I looked down to find a pipe had been put into a crack that I had made, and the village nearby was lit up in a myriad of colours. I woke up the next morning with a guy sitting on my head. He had a pair of these long glasses-like things looking into the sky. He pointed and said, "That's it, I've finally seen one." The excitement from this spread through the village, and the next day there was 15 people on my head, and then 40, then 60. Before too long, hundreds of people were travelling from the other side of the island to see this white-tailed eagle. As time went on, people also began to break off parts of my skin. They seemed to use it to polish these precious metals and clean themselves. Some even began to make buildings out of me, breaking off parts of me in the process. Why am I telling you this? Because whenever you see a volcano, you think of something that is destructive, evil, deadly, or even the gateway to hell itself. We're attractions for tourists to come and spend their money in your countries. We give you free, safe energy. We give you fertile soil to grow your crops. We give you areas of beauty. But most importantly, what you fail to remember is that my brothers created your atmosphere. They created your oceans. We created the air that you breathe, the water that you drink, and the ground on which you walk. This is my story.
Well, this isn't the documentary I was meant to be making. I was meant to be stood on Hekla or Katla or even Eyjafjall Jökull. But as Bilbo Baggins would say, only thing to do, we go on. You're probably wondering why I keep reading quotes from a fictional character. Tolkien's book is one of the best-selling books of all time, with over 150 million copies sold. Tolkien wrote The Lord of the Rings whilst being inspired by Iceland and Icelandic literature, which is evident throughout. For example, the trolls are based on the Icelandic and Norse mythology, and the hobbit holes are taken from Icelandic turf houses. Gandalf is even based off an incarnation of Odin known as the Wanderer. Similar to me, Tolkien never actually got to go to Iceland, and I believe that Baggins at some point is trying to tell a similar story to mine. Iceland has been near to the top of my bucket list since 2016, and if I'd stayed at my high school for college, I knew that I'd be given the opportunity to go to Iceland as part of a geography field trip. However, I decided to move to a different college which would allow me to study subjects that I was more interested in. Iceland is one of the only examples of a land-based constructive plate margin on planet Earth. The constant growing of the island fascinates me. I see the growing similar to that of the human brain. Its growing is endless as more material is provided. The human brain is the world's most powerful computer and can continue to grow, similar to that of Iceland. I wish that I was stood on top of a volcano telling you how I felt, or standing outside with the northern lights flying around my head. However, we're here. My granddad was lucky enough to go to Iceland in 1996 after winning the TV quiz show Today's the Day. Although he wasn't there for very long, only a few days, he still fondly remembers the experience of seeing the island itself, but also experiencing the volcanic presence and the thermal springs. My best friend also went to Iceland in 2016 with his school. Seeing his photos and hearing him talk about the incredible landscape ignited me to want to travel to Iceland even more. When thinking of my experiences with volcanoes, the second experience I can think of is the 2010 eruption of Eyjafjallajökull. The eruption grounded European aerospace due to a large deposit of volcanic ash in the Earth's atmosphere. I remember the day of this eruption. It was the 20th of March, and I went to my mum and dad's room and sat on the bottom of their bed watching the news, staring in awe at the sheer power and the explosivity of the eruption. 4 years after my last encounter with the volcanoes, this began to ignite a fire again. I think that this point is when I wanted to understand more. I was beginning to ask questions like why the eruption stopped the airplanes, and what was it that made it smell like it did? How big was it? All things that I now know. 2010 was an incredibly tectonic active year. In the January, a magnitude 7 earthquake hit Haiti, killing 220,000 people, and the city's capital was almost completely flattened in the space of 35 seconds. A month later, a magnitude 8.8 earthquake hit the coast of Chile, causing both an earthquake and a tsunami, killing 525 people. Since 2010, there has been minimal volcanic activity in Iceland. The 2011 eruption of Grímsvötn on the 21st of May is the only of its kind. An ash plume rose 20 kilometres into the air, and it's the strongest eruption of Grímsvötn for 100 years. There was not as much disruption as the 2010 eruption, however flights were cancelled to and from Iceland, Greenland, Scotland and Norway. Grímsvötn is now also expected to erupt again in the next few years, as well as Katla. Although 2010 might not have been as significant year as others, when looking back on it, it was still an important year for me. Similar to 2006, there was a World Cup during it. Again, England didn't do very well, being knocked out on June the 27th in the round of 16, losing 4-1 to Germany. This World Cup was significant to me, as it was the first World Cup that I can remember watching all the way through. I think this World Cup made me fall in love with football even more because of the bright colours, incredible culture and the amazing noises. It will live long in my memory as the best World Cup of my childhood. In 2010, my Scout group celebrated their 100-year anniversary. I assisted with the creation of an exhibition in the local library. I proudly showed round the local MP, and the sense of pride allowed me to gain confidence when talking to new people, a skill which over time I've developed into my leadership style and into my presentation skills. We also went on a celebratory camp where I managed to conquer my fear of heights. This was a significant moment, as without it I might never have been able to join this course due to being too scared of climbing and falling. School, the factory for learning, where you don't know half of them half as well as I should like, but at the same time you like less than half of them half as well as they deserve. School is not for everyone, that's for sure. Some people thrive off the learning environment and from reading pages of books and writing their notes out over and over again, but not everyone can do that. A place where you are judged on your ability to memorise information and then regurgitate it 4 months later. Personally, I found that my enjoyment of school depended on the enthusiasm of my teachers. This was evident in my creative writing that I produced in the first year, which was later published in the Journal of Qualitative Research in Sports Science. Old people on screens. Sitting and staring into the abyss, hoping the darkness would give it a miss. The white light projector tried to show about something that happened so very long ago. No colour at all, except from the front of the book. I tried to concentrate, but I really wasn't hooked. Everyone around me looked dead to the earth. What were we doing? What was it worth? I saw old videos of men I should know, but how was that possible? They were born ages ago. They did not seem happy, but neither were they sad. A classmate joked that it could be his dad. The lights came back on, and everyone awoke. When Miss was talking, nobody spoke. My eyes were on fire, the light burnt them dry. They felt so parched, they wanted to cry. The lesson seemed almost over until I looked over and saw we had not had our fill. The clock hardly moved as the second hand stood still. She asked me a question. Then I felt a chill. What was I to say? Who had been shot? A man, a woman? For why and for what? I hated the question. I answered, don't know. People giggled as my knowledge did not grow. My spelling was awful, my sentences too. A nice way to put it was that they were poo. I struggled to read and I struggled to write. I wanted to curl up and choose flight, not fight. The past was gone and I didn't understand why. We had to learn about it, so I turned a blind eye. I wanted to know about the future, about tax, about politics, and about the computer. Not migration, revolution, or my interpretation. Not change or conquest or church castration. We were taught the same thing over and over. My dad remembered it and told me I'm a step closer. The outdated content made me dislike the subject, with lots of work being boring, useless, and incorrect. Seconds felt like minutes, and minutes felt like hours. Hours to days, days to weeks, weeks to months, and months to years. Was it ever worth it? My work was satisfactory. I felt like I was working in a factory, sitting in straight rows, nice and neat, raising my hand if I ever wanted to speak. This was the abyss. Musical chairs. Huddling around a table like a waddle of penguins trying to keep warm, sharing our knowledge with each other. Our teacher was like a wise owl, filled with knowledge, teaching us about music as old as the 16th century until the modern day, filling our ears and bodies with music and smiles. Sitting in a circle, we felt like members of King Arthur's Knights of the Round Table, all with the same importance, but with different talents that made us unique, ranging from classical guitar to electric guitar, jazz clarinet to singing modern pop songs. She kept us engaged like a lion being teased by a slow gazelle. We're encouraged by the promise of cake and hot drinks. The highly decorated walls were covered in posters and pieces of music, of composers past, present and future. The bright colours mirrored the students' feelings as well as the teacher's opinion of a bright future. Bright, colourful lessons filled with enjoyment, laughter and fun. You never wanted to leave the room.
It became a second home, where students would practice before school, perform at lunch, and nap or compose after school. There was a plethora of genres and an excess of instruments, from bass clarinets, cornets, violins, pianos and double basses, drums, guitars, trombones and saxophones. The department was a place of inspiration. Students past and present supporting, conversing, suggesting, all working to the same goal, the perfect sound, striving for improvement. No intimidation, despite the ridiculously high levels of ability. Instead, just support and passion. Everyone dedicated many more hours than to any other subject. The enjoyment of the subject by both student and teacher meant that hours flew by like the migration of birds during winter. On the surface, we looked effortless and elegant. Behind the scenes, we were working hard, like a new cog trying to fit into its system. Each new piece of information, a new cog to add to the clockwork. Last lesson on a Friday always felt like it lasted forever, except when it was music. We never wanted to leave when it was over. Regularly, we hung around like a pack of African wild dogs, devouring our teacher of knowledge like the dogs devour an animal carcass, only leaving when we'd had everything we needed to complete our work to the highest standard, getting the best grade and writing the best essay possible. We would blast out our top notes, all trying to be the loudest, like the elephants of Colonel Hathie's parade in the Jungle Book, but always improving as we noticed our own and other people's flaws. We shared our skills with each other, trying to become more well-rounded musicians, learning intensely about each other's genres, like a bird being told how to fly. I loved music. It made me relax. It made me feel happy and safe. I loved my time in that classroom. Sadly, it is gone, but its effects will live on for a long time. Thank you, music, for making me who I am.
At school you get split. Those which are academically gifted and those which are more practically gifted. This can knock many people's confidence, and the comparison between friendship groups can become incredibly difficult for some, adding pressure on them. At school I always felt as though I was under pressure. Throughout my life I've worked hard at my studies. Nothing has ever been easy for me, whether that be playing a musical instrument or writing an essay. However, I've always been determined to do the best possible, applying too much stress and pressure onto myself. Because I work so hard, lots of my friends and course mates always say that I'll do really well. And this added peer pressure means that even to this day, I work extremely hard to impress everyone else and not just myself. If I ever struggle with anything, I always have my family there to help me. Although they didn't add pressure to it, or pile on expectation onto me, I always want to do them proud, and I'm not ashamed to say that my brother and sister are more academically gifted than I am, so maybe subconsciously I wanted to try and get as close to them as possible in terms of grading. But why do we even have grading? What is the obsession with A star to U, or 9 to 1? Why don't we just have pass and fail? Grading not only divides the pass and the fails, but then also divides those who pass into who did better than others. This can lead for people to feel disappointed about the outcomes of their assessments. Personally, I've never liked being into a bracket. I never like being told that this is what I'm good at and I shouldn't try to improve on any other aspects. Continually developing, improving myself is important to me. Like the understanding of editing is getting better throughout this video. I feel like this determination has really helped me overcome the fact that my dissertation has changed so many times. In 2014, I had to pick my GCSE options, and I chose to take geography as one of them. Taking geography meant that I attained the English Baccalaureate. Although this isn't an official certificate, as it just is a point scorer for the school, it proved to myself that I was able to complete something of an academic nature. I also believe that geography was a traditional subject, similar to that of history and English. Some do not view geography as a traditional subject, but as you're taught it at a primary school, I would say it is. I'd also say that everything has a relation to a state of place. Geography interests me. However, only physical geography interests me. To me, geography is the study of places and the relationship between people and their environments. However, I was more interested in the study of places and their landscapes. I completed the GCSE and felt really quite disappointed in myself when I only got a B. This was the one subject that I really wanted to do better in and get an A or above. Although I was disappointed, I knew that I could do better. I was proud that I got grades that I wanted in all of my other GCSEs, and I was looking forward to my A-levels, and I was ready to prove to myself that actually I did have the knowledge to study it further. I completed my GCSEs during the 2016 Euros in France. A Euro is less known for Portugal winning, but one of the smallest countries causing an upset. Iceland won a spot in everyone's heart during that summer. After finishing second in their group above eventual winners Portugal and knocking out Austria, they knocked out England in the round of 16, later to be knocked out in the quarterfinals by the host France. Although the win against England is stuck in many English fans' heads, the Viking thunderclap was what made Iceland stand out at that tournament. The synchronised clapping of thousands of individuals were the sight to behold and made the tournament one of the most memorable of the decade. Iceland has a relatively small population of 329,000, with 33% of the population giving them a hero's welcome on the return with a massive thunderclap in the capital city of Reykjavik. It was a sight to behold. It seems like Iceland has been secretly in the background of my life for much longer than I thought. I then went on to college. I chose to take geology, geography and photography, a combination which not many did expect. I've had a passion for photography since my 16th birthday, when my granddad bought me a camera. Since then I have not stopped taking photos, be that on holiday, or at home, at university, or on mountaineering weeks, where I've seen some of the most incredible views. The work in photography tended to be more independent and relied on a rigorous critical reflection, which helped set me up for what university would be like. I loved studying geography and geology because there was always something new to discover, because new information was always coming out and they're ever changing. Completing these three subjects gave me a variety of skills, such as observation skills, preparation, problem solving, organisational skills, as well as risk-taking, teamwork and resilience. Similar to completing my GCSEs, I was put under more pressure by myself than anyone else. I was always determined to get into the university that I desired, and I continued to enjoy the physical side of geography. This was emphasised by the study of geology, which gave me a more in-depth understanding of the physical sides of geography. However, similar to my GCSE, I ended up crumbling in the exams. And I can't lie about how devastated I was about that. The stress of the exam really got to me, and moments before I entered the room, I forgot all the information I'd learned. I can tell you right now that the Caledonian orogeny took place between the Cambrian and the Mid-Devonian periods, and cut through the south of Scotland, and that basalt is 0.3 grams per cubic centimetre denser than granite. However, in the exam I forgot all of that. This, however, did not stop me getting into the university that I wanted to go to. And as much as I enjoyed those three courses, I realised that maybe they weren't the career path that I wanted to go down. Once I completed my A-levels, the 2018 Russian World Cup began, which would see England reach third place playoffs, where we eventually lost to Belgium. Sadly, I didn't see this match because I was in Peru with Camps International. We worked in many small communities helping to improve their infrastructure before going on a 4-day trek along the Salcantay Trail, reaching 4,630 metres above sea level before reaching Machu Picchu. Over the last 3 years, I have fallen in love with stories. Those which were first told thousands of years ago and those that will be told tomorrow. Each story is uniquely different, and everything which someone says, does or even thinks can be a story. The last 12 months of pretty much continuous lockdowns has given me time to think about us being a storytelling animal. And it's true. From the moment you tell someone about how you slept, to telling them about your day. Whether you're telling the truth or not, that's irrelevant. What you told them will always be the story that they know. From dreams to books, journals to conversations, music and films. These are stories that are constant throughout your life, either being read, watched or listened to. Am I a volcanologist? A question that if you'd asked me 4 years ago, I would have hoped the answer would have been yes. Well, it depends. A volcanologist studies the science of volcanic eruptions and volcanic landscapes. Do I study that? No. But at the age of 17, I was fascinated by the science of a volcanic eruption. How did the magma rise? Why was the composition different dependent on the rock types and the locations across the planet? All things which could have been understood by reading about them. There was never any need for experience. However, although I might not study volcanoes from a scientific point of view, I like to think that I now study them from a cultural point of view. Since I stopped studying them academically, stories including volcanoes have become increasingly interesting and have allowed me to further my knowledge of global cultures both in the past and the present. Volcanoes have been referred to in Greek and Roman mythology as the furnaces at which the gods of blacksmiths work. Some even suggest that the crater is so that the Cyclops, which is trapped below, is able to see the world around him. Even in Christianity, there is references to possible volcanic activity. Within the Bible, passages such as verse 8 of Psalm 18, "Smoke rose from his nostrils, consuming fire came from his mouth, burning coals blaze out of it." These stories have been passed on through generations, similar to that of my family's traditions. These stories are known all across the world, yet some eruptions, such as Laki in 1793, are less well known, even with it being one of the largest volcanic eruptions ever. The question is, should these stories be known worldwide? Does it not make the world a bit more interesting with there being different stories in different places? So I might not be a scientific volcanologist, but I am going to give myself my own title. I'm a socio-volcanologist. I study the social side of volcanology. And this is my story.
again, I will float again all along the way. Close my eyes again, here we go, I'm off again before a brand new day. That's my dream. It seems so hard swimming through the air. Tries our mind, there's nothing there. And I go, and I go, and I go on my way back home. It's fuzzy in the clouds, but all the time I see so clearly inside my mind. And I go, and I go, and I go on my way back home. On my way to black and white. It's my dream, it's coming true. My dream, thinking of you. My dream, I got to lose. Thinking of the time I spent with you. Green old fields and the country air. I know that it's special. If I know that something's there, I'll be gone for good. I always knew it would. On my way to black and white. That's my dream, that's coming true. My dream, thinking of you. My dream, I get to lose. Thinking of the time I spent with you. Thinking of the time I spent with you. Thinking of the time I spent with you. It's my dream that's coming true. My dream, thinking of you. My dream, I got to lose. Thinking of the time I spent with you. It's my dream that's coming